Here's another thing. Entrepreneurial adaptability may be right when you're building casinos. I don't think volatility is what we're looking for in the presidency of the United States.
Would you work?
Very much the opposite.
If he were president and he called you, and
I don't do ridiculous hypothetical questions, Anthony. When public officials seek my advice, I try to provide it, but I would not be comfortable with, as I suspect many people would not be comfortable working in an administration where they were in profound disagreement with many of the basic policy thrusts.
I want to turn to Hillary Clinton, but final question on Donald Trump. Do you think he's going to be able to bring the party together? Do you think that's possible?
I'll stick to economic prognostication.
Listen, you spent many years out in Washington.
Which is hard. Good try.
Yeah.
Which is.
I would say that I'm very grateful for that introduction. I was looking to see if you were reading that off from somewhere, and I couldn't find it. And you got it. I don't think my mother could have gotten it quite as accurately, and I'm not sure my mother would have had quite as much of a bias towards charity in what you chose to say and what you didn't. Thank you very much.
You're exactly right in everything you said. You know, the Android device you're carrying and the iPhone I'm carrying. Sorry about that.
Can we discuss this?
Yeah, we can discuss that. Perhaps if you compensated your speakers better, I'd be able to afford. I'd be able to afford an Android.
Android is cheaper.
Well. But you've got a thing that you all study called lock-in and switching costs, and
That's right.
And the like.
War. I'm going to take this to a very different place. We'll come back to management and interacting with people and stuff in a few moments. But carried interest taxation.
The idea I came up for this, you can imagine.
If you take our economics classes here in our economics department, and let me stipulate at the beginning that nobody in our economics department has a net worth that's 1% of yours. But if you take our economics, if you take classes in our economics department, you sort of learn that as a principle of having a kind of efficient tax system and having a kind of fair tax system, income should presumptively get taxed at the same rate, regardless of precisely how it's made. And that way there'll be a level playing field and resources will be balanced and be fair and all that kind of stuff. As you know, and probably most of the people in the room know, we don't have a tax code that's entirely like that in the United States. And one important respect in which we have it is that if you earn money by getting a salary, you pay a full tax rate on that. If you earn money by making investments on behalf of other people and taking a share of the profits that you make on those investments, then you basically get taxed on that income as capital gains, and your tax rate's about half as high. The consequence of that is that mostly for people who work in private equity, the people who are most senior have about half as high a tax rate as their personal assistants do. And that seems a little unreasonable to a lot of people. And you have spoken out passionately and very strongly in favor of those breaks for carried interest. Why do you do that?
Well, let me. It's good I'm in a friendly setting. Let me ask you one question before I answer that. What is the tax rate of my secretary? Since it's half of mine, or mine is half of theirs, what is my secretary's tax rate?
I'm guessing that your assistants, you may be in a position to have a quite remarkably highly paid assistant in fairness. But I'm guessing that if you exclude the payroll tax, I'm guessing that if you add in the various taxes, it's probably 35 or 40%.
Yeah, mine is 48. So I don't think I need to answer the rest of your question.
Well, wait. If yours is 48, it's not because you're paying 48 on your carried interest. So you may somehow be generous enough to the rest of us to not be taking your income in the form of carried interest. So that's great. But I wasn't asking about your taxes. I was asking about the taxes of people who benefit from the carried interest tax break, which is at the capital gains rate, which is at the federal level in the range of below 25.
I have a lot of current income,
Well, I'm just asking about carried interest. I'm not asking about your tax rate. I'm asking about carried interest.
This sounds very much
which
like
is a feature of your industry.
It sounds very much like a Democratic question. I'm paying 48 all in, and I have very large amounts of current income, less proportionally in carried interest. And I live for my sins in a place called New York City and New York State. So when there was supposed tax reform by the current government, my taxes went up. The current thing, if Larry was doing the full interview, he'd say, and you got a tax break, my tax break is that it went up.
I feel your pain.
Well, it's not that much fun. We have about the most progressive tax structure in the world in the United States. You've got 1%, top 1% pays somewhere between 38 and 40% of federal income tax. And in New York City, New York State, it's close to the mid 40s. So we really have like a oddball inverted pyramid. So the rhetoric.
I'm not doing rhetoric. I'm not asking you about your taxes. I'm not asking about progressivity. I'm just asking you about carried interest.
Well,
just carried interest. Maybe it doesn't apply to you at all, for all I know. I'm just asking you about carried interest. Is there a defense for carried interest?
Look,
you're a pillar of the private equity industry.
Hey.
Carried interest is a major feature of the private equity industry. I'm just asking you about carried interest. Not about. I wouldn't dream of doing an ad hominem thing addressing your taxes or your situation. I'm just asking about carried interest.
It's like a dog with a bone. What I say, just, carried interest has been around since, I think, 1937. That was before I was born. That was before your parents were born. It's probably before...
Racism's been around for 300 years. I mean, that doesn't constitute... The fact that it's been around since 1937 surely can't be the basis of the defense.
Well, the basic of the
surely
defense...
Surely you can do better than that.
Well, not really. The basis of the expense of the argument is that it's always been like this. And so what do I know? You're the person who wants to change it. Not me. So it was good enough for generations
So is slavery. I mean, lots of things have been around for a long time.
We're not going to that.
Good to see we're serious, scholarly here at the School of Public Health. I'm told that the Winklevi, when asked the same question, said the only problem with the scene is that Larry Summers was much less nice to us in person than he was in the movie. It has been said occasionally that I can be arrogant. If that is true, I probably was arrogant on that occasion. They came swaggering in with what I perceived as a great sense of entitlement, which I was not prepared to give them. And I didn't think what they were saying was enormously reasonable. And I probably made that very clear to them, as I'm told I sometimes can. So was it exactly accurate? No, I never told anybody to punch me in the face, as they did in the movie. Was the dialogue exactly things I would have or did say? Probably not. Was the impression left of arrogant students met a equally arrogant, older, slightly condescending university president accurate? Yes, it absolutely was.
Bill, thank you very, very much for that generous introduction. It did slightly remind me of the occasion in Washington when I was asked to introduce President Clinton before a very, very large financial group. And I extolled Bill Clinton's virtues in terms of reducing budget deficits and surpluses and being profoundly financially rectitudinous. And he said, he got up and stood here like this, and he said, "Larry, you have just demonstrated one of my most important laws of political life. Whenever possible, be introduced by someone who you appointed to high office." So, Bill, thank you very much, and much more, much more. You know, when I drive from the center of Beijing to the center of, to the Beijing airport, I am able to continue my phone conversation with my wife in Boston without interruption.
Except by the Chinese authorities.
Well, somebody may be listening, admittedly, but perhaps that's why they don't interrupt. Hear what it is I was often asked when I was in Washington what the difference was between the university and life in Washington. And I used to respond that there were many, but perhaps the one that was most salient was this. As a professor at Harvard, the worst thing a person could do was to sign their name to something they did not write. On the other hand, in Washington, it was a mark of effectiveness to do so as often as possible.